The person I chose to talk about was Abigail Adams. She was definitely stood out to me because she was one of the few women who had a voice back in her time, and she was right along there with the founding fathers um, of the United States, and was kind of there in the foundation of it. She was very outspoken, um, especially for a woman. Um, she had an opinion and she let it be known. So we're gonna dive a little bit deeper in, I guess. So like I said, I'm doing Abigail Adams, and she is the wife of John Adams, the second president of the United States. And well, also she is the mother of John Quincy Adams, who also ends up becoming a president of the United States of America. John Adams is the second, and John Quincy Adams is the sixth. So, not many women can say that they were married to and birthed a president of the United States of America. She's not the only, she's definitely the first to do so. Um, so I found that very interesting about her as well. She was a self educated woman. Obviously, women aren't being educated formally back then. They didn't go to school. They would pretty much stay at home and learn how to become a housewife, I guess, which is another reason why she stuck out to me. She definitely used her brain, and like I said, she was self-educated. She read a lot and even studied French, so she was definitely up there with the women in her time. Excuse me. So yeah, and she was also said to be a strong advocate for women's rights. She encouraged her husband and other members of the Continental Congress to remember the ladies um, when crafting the new American government. And Abigail Adams really becomes instrumental because of her correspondence. She becomes a very talented correspondent, um, which, I mean, that's pretty good for her, especially being self educated. So she marries John Adams in 1764 at the age of 19. Um, and so they end up having four children together: Abigail, John Quincy, as I mentioned before, Charles, and Thomas Boylston. Like I said, she was a talented correspondent. Um, and another thing about, I know some people are probably like, all she did was write letters as a talent, but letter writing back then was not just a form of communication, but it was a mode of self definition and a way of relating to the larger society as a whole, obviously. So being able to have your own thought process, um, I don't know how we got away from that now, but being able to think on your own and being able to put into words was a part of your character, especially, back then with limited technology. Um, so, that's just how the times were. So the fact that she just became really good at that, and that's what she knows, that's what she's known for now, even till now. They look back on her letters, as a look. back into the 18th century because they were that good. So, you know, I feel as though Abigail did it all personally. I mean, she had 4 kids, and she was a strong-willed woman. Like I said, I'm gonna keep mentioning it. She was self-educated, and she engaged in business enterprises. She purchased land and dealt with tenants. So she to me, she definitely had an active hand that a lot of other women, I feel like, did not have at that time. So she was kind of self-made, and I really like that about her. She really engrossed herself in literature and history and political um, philosophy, and despite her lack of training or being able to be taught by someone formally, she was still able to perfect her craft. So yeah, um, and she excelled at it. And and I have a quote from her in 1775. She wrote to her husband John, "My pen is freer than my tongue. I have wrote many things to you that I suppose I never could have taught." Um, so, like I said, going back to like the letter and the self definition, that defining moment of writing letters, she, you know, like she said, her pen is freer than her tongue. That was um her way of expressing her feelings and being able to say whatever she wanted to say. She was feisty in her letters. Um, they weren't just like cookie cutter letters. She would rarely hold back in her letter. She was brutally honest. Um, and like I said, her letters provided a look into the 18th century life, private and public. She had her opinions, her observations. You could clearly see her love of politics or her obsession with politics, and that, women really weren't in there, but yet she definitely had her opinion, and you can tell she wanted an active hand. And, she was at a point in time, she was John Adams' biggest confidant. He was betrayed by many. I'm sure we all know that by now. He was betrayed by many close friends and colleagues, and really the only person that he could depend on and trust was Abigail Adams. Um, so, I definitely love the dynamic of their relationship as well. With that, she was a strong woman to her man. So I really found that interesting, and I love that relationship that they have together. Um, so yeah, in the letters, she clearly had it. Um, she was overzealous um, for politics, or zeal for politics. Sorry. um, yeah, it also displayed her avid patriotism, um, the love that she had for the country, um, and yeah, which that brings me to the situation that I found interesting. That was just a little background of like who she was. So what I found interesting was the letter that she exchanged with Thomas Jefferson. And as we all know, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams had a falling out. He was ultimately betrayed by Thomas Jefferson, who was supposed to be a really good friend of his, and yeah, they fell out because he basically let John Adams go up into flames, and, exposed him for that and came with like a lot of lies against him to use as fuel for his campaign for his presidency. So, like what friend does that? So obviously that was a risk in their relationship. And you know, John Adams lost his daughter to childbirth. Um, yeah, Maria died in child labor, and Abigail Adams was really close with Maria, was like a mother figure for her. So, Abigail Adams, being that lady she reached out to him despite what was going on in the personal relationships, showing her condolences, because Maria and her did have a relationship, and at the end of the day, that love is still there. There's no denying that. So being the woman that she is, she reached out to Thomas Jefferson, and he responded, of course. And I felt in the most I felt was the most distasteful manner ever. He responded. Of course, he had to bring up the differences with them, stating that we're not on the same side, basically. But and I'm still mad about John Adams. I'm still mad at John. We're not on the same, but kind of just a backhanded up. Thank you, really, for that. And you know, of course, Abigail Adams, double A, of course she has to respond and defend her husband. And also her, because honestly, it just was not the time for that. You just lost your daughter. It's a time for agreement period. You know what I'm saying? Not the time. You have so many other things to worry about, or you should be worrying about other stuff rather than the beef between, you know, my husband and you. And then you're writing it to me. Well, not to me, obviously, but like, it's like you're writing this letter to the wife of the person you have a problem with. A little inappropriate. Um, just something you don't do. My personal opinion. But, she says, well, you clearly have entered, subjects that call for reply. So I have to reply. And, she says, I've already disclosed, what the problem is between you and I. I guess now I have to, tell you more, tell you what it really is. Why I don't, well, okay, not what it really is, but I guess I have to reiterate what was already said. So I sense a little annoyance in that letter back. And yeah, she says, I have freely disclosed what has severed the friendship between us and placed you in a different light from what I once viewed you as. And yeah, like she just basically defended her husband and said, you kind of started it, you were wrong because you went up against a very good friend of yours and a friend of your family. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've taken care of your daughter. Like, how dare you? But anyway, um, you went up against us and you were spreading lies about my husband in your published articles or journals, whatever you want to call them. And, that's why we aren't friends. You know that. And so what is the problem? And so of course, he has to write back again. He writes back and says, honestly, it went both ways. It just wasn't me. But at the same time, you were, on my side, and then you used it as fuel to, okay, whatever. It was just wrong. That's not what I'm talking about Abigail Adams right now. I am so sorry. I digress. But anyway, I just found that situation so compelling because she really takes up for John Adams, especially him being his only confidant at the moment, because he has no one else really. So she was a strong willed woman who spoke well, who educated herself, who didn't limit herself to just watching kids at home. A talented correspondent, obviously, and yeah, I just found that interesting about